Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Tell Me a Story.
Nah, but seriously, Laila, storytelling is an art of its own, and we all know it's like what the story is about.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. A good story can make you a king or a queen, I guess.
I want to be at the end of that story.
This is African Roots, brought to you by DW. In this podcast series, we discover how individuals from across Africa shaped the continent. I'm Laila Johnson Salami.
And I'm Kai Nebe. Griots, Laila.
Yes, what about them?
Well, I think they have a lot to answer for.
Okay, what do you mean? And also, what exactly is a griot?
Well, it's a good question. Actually, griots are storytellers. They are mainly from West Africa. And I guess actually you could say a griot is a mix of a few professions, like storyteller, musician, historian.
Okay, sounds pretty cool. I mean, then I guess as a storyteller, do I count as one?
Yes, well, you do definitely count as one. You are a storyteller, and you, as well as a woman, you could also be a storyteller. It's one of those cool traditional jobs that has actually always been like a unisex job. Anyway, but when it comes to you personally, Laila,
Don't go there, Kai. What do you mean?
the thing is, you actually need to be born into a griot family, and you have to start training to be a griot from a very young age. Traditionally, actually, you'd need to know not just your own history, your own family's history, but your entire community's family history. In other words, you'd have to remember your collective community history for generations and be able to tell it in a way so that people could actually remember it. Now, that is also a tricky thing.
Wow, I mean, that does sound complicated, I must say. But, you know, Kai, here at African Roots, we do tell the stories of a great many great people, and we tell it to many people. So, I mean, doesn't that kind of make us like mini griots?
Nice try. Maybe. But I don't know about you. I certainly can't do anything musical. And there's also one thing we don't have that most griots have in common.
Which is?
They are also famous for advising important political leaders. In fact, in ancient West Africa, influential families would have a family griot who would be their live history teller / advisor, which we, you, Laila, and me, Kai, unfortunately don't do. Someone who did was the man we're going to be talking about today. His name is Sunjata Keita.
That name does kind of ring a bell. What's his deal?
What's his deal? He's only the father of the Mali Empire. And and one of the main reasons we know this is actually thanks to the work of griots, West Africa's storytellers.
Listen then, sons of Mandingo, children of the black people, listen to my words. I am going to tell you of Sunjata, a hero of many names, he whose exploits will astonish men for a long time yet.
This starts the ancient tale of Sunjata Keita, the Lion King. It's an epic chronicle that has been passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation. So for now, I'm glad to be playing the role of a griot.
I told you it would stick.
Well, let me at least try in the role. So first, Sunjata Keita is remembered as the founder of the Mali Empire, if you will, the Golden Age. But his life did not get off to a particularly good start. According to some tellings of the story, which, by the way, is not how any griot would start telling a story, Sunjata Keita was the son of a king.
Wait, I thought you said he didn't have an auspicious start.
Yeah, because the thing is, he was crippled to an extent that he could not walk. And he and his mother were bullied relentlessly by the king's other wives, especially after the king, Sunjata's father, died. But the story goes, one day, enraged by the bullying, Sunjata stood up and walked, partly through determination and partly through sorcery.
After recovering his breath, the king's son dropped his walking stick. The crowd stood to one side, and his first steps were those of a giant. Make way, make way, make way. The lion is walking, said the crowd.
That would not be the last time Sunjata Keita would stand up to oppression, because he would one day go on to be known as the Lion King. No, not that one.
Oh.
Okay, so while we don't know all too many facts about his early life, oral tradition told in the Epic of Sunjata says he was born towards the end of the 12th century in what is today Guinea to a Mandinka king. Despite breaking free from his disability, the death of Sunjata's father left him and his mother unprotected from the enemies in the royal court. His older brother, Dankaran, became king instead, and he scorned Sunjata. So Sunjata Keita, along with his mother, is forced into exile and lives in the neighboring Mema kingdom. There he is lauded as a hunter and a great warrior, and he gains the strength of a lion, hence the Lion King.
Okay, it makes sense now.
But soon, Sunjata's home people, the Mandinka, are under threat from the Suso people and their villainous leader Suamaro, which is quite an epic villainous name, I get the impression. The Epic of Sunjata says all hope is lost and Dankaran flees. But Sunjata sees this as an opportunity to claim the Mandinka throne and assume his role as the rightful leader. So Sunjata Keita assembles his chiefs of the Mandinka people.
You know, Sunjata seems like quite a military strategist.
Yeah, you could say that again. And in the Battle of Corina of 1235, Sunjata Keita leads his followers into battle, and they defeat Saumaro.
Go Cai the griot.
This, Laila, is how, according to legend, the Mali Empire was formed. At its height, the empire stretched from West Africa's coast 2,000 kilometers inland to the Niger River and beyond. And it united a range of ethnic groups, says Seydou Camara, professor of history at the University of Bamako in Mali.
Il a uni les royaumes mandingues. Le Mandé était composé.
He unified the Mandingo kingdom. The Mandingo was composed of different clans. There were the Traoré, the Keita, the Camara, the Kone, and so on. Sunjata restored peace in the kingdom. He founded a great empire, a vast, developed, unified, strong, and prosperous empire. These were his dreams, and he realized them.
Prospère. C'était ses rêves, quoi.
I mean, one of the greatest empires that we all know about, and an empire that became extremely significant, Cai.
Yeah, certainly. And we have to remember that though the Mali Empire started in the 13th century, it is not quite the same as the modern country of Mali. It looks also very different on a map. It encompassed lands in Guinea, the Gambia, Senegal, Mauritania, and Mali. And during his 20 years of rule, Sunjata developed agriculture and took control of the salt and gold trade, which is hardly insignificant at the time, and so helped Mali become rich and powerful. And when I say rich and powerful, he laid foundations for a Mali empire that would dominate political activity for about 150 years. It was only in the 15th century that the empire slowly dissipated, and the yet larger Songhai Empire became the dominating force in the region. But the last remnants of the Mali Empire were documented around 1600.
That's honestly the stuff of legends. And counting it all, I mean, we're looking at up to 400 years, right?
It's not just the longevity, Laila. Sunjata Keita is credited with establishing a centrally organized system of government, and he actually prohibited slavery, explains Seydou Camara.
Qui a touché à presque tous les aspects de la vie.
He dealt with almost all aspects of life. He enacted laws about the protection of nature, the preservation of social status. He enacted laws about women, about foreigners, about duty, about rights.
Sur le devoir, sur les droits.
This is actually known as the Manden Charter, one of the oldest constitutions in the world. And there are three central themes to this. One is respecting the right to life, one is respecting women, and the other is not mistreating foreigners.
Wow, so he was almost like a modernizer then.
Yeah, and the golden age of the empire was characterized by stability and to a degree tolerance. Well, we don't know definitively what religion Sunjata Keita belonged to. We know that most people in the Mali Empire were Muslim. And Sunjata Keita managed to keep support of non-Muslims by allowing traditional practices to continue, many of which were carried on by, guess what?
Griots.
Yes. So the great Sunjata Keita died around 1255, though we don't know exactly how. Again, there are many versions of how this happened. Still, though, it is hard to separate fact from fiction in Sunjata's story. The written sources we have are mostly from Arabic traders, and they are said to prove Sunjata Keita was a real person. But these sources have very few details about his life, and as much as we like them, the oral tales are not so reliable, says Seydou Camara.
C'est par la mémoire que l'histoire est retenue.
History is retained through memory. But we know that memory is fragile, and oral traditions can also collapse the events of several centuries into one single century and one single person. These are the hurdles of oral tradition.
So Seydou Camara does have a point, but memories and stories told through oral traditions also have value. I mean, they may not be so accurate when it comes to dates, but what they are far better at conveying are feelings and the mood of a time and place, Laila.
You know, that's so true. And there are countless stories that most people only ever hear, told orally. And of course, at a time when most people could not read, oral tradition was the only way that history was retained.
Yes, but what we do know, both from oral tradition and written histories, is that the Mali Empire flourished until around 1550. Then it outgrew its political strength. Smaller states rebelled and neighboring tribes seized some of the most important cities. The empire slowly began to crumble, unlike the legend of Sunjata Keita, which lives on to this day, as well, again, thanks to the memories of the griots.
Like us, Cai.
You really want to be a griot, don't you, Laila?
When we come back, we'll stay in the realm of oral storytelling, but this time we are heading to Nigeria.
DW African Roots. Find new African Roots episodes on dw.com/African Roots, Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Nigeria, Laila. That's a huge, massive place, right?
It really is, Cai. I mean, lots of people. Nigeria is set to be the third most populous country in the world by 2050, just to give you an idea. But there's a very specific Nigerian to discuss today. And like Sunjata Keita, he is shrouded in mystery.
Bring it on. Now you are the African Roots griot then.
I sure am. So long ago, like 9th century, we're talking kind of long ago, an Arab prince rode from the ancient city of Baghdad in modern-day Iraq to northern Nigeria. His name was Bayajida.
Wow. So Baghdad in the Middle East, that is pretty far to modern day Nigeria. Wow.
It's very far indeed. And for his troubles, the legend of Bayajida is central to the founding story of the Hausa states in northern Nigeria. Like Sunjata Keita, the stories of Bayajida were passed down the generations orally. So there's little concrete evidence to confirm things like his birth, his death, or even his existence, Cai. But we do have his stories.
Uh-huh. So why did Bayajida come so far, may I ask? Like, what was his purpose?
You're not going to believe me, but he came all this way apparently because of a fallout with his father.
A fallout with his father. Now, I have to say that is a story as old as time. But that must have been some fallout if you rode all the way from Baghdad to Nigeria.
Absolutely. I mean, as legend has it, that's what happened. And when you think about it, Cai, it's a very long way. But yeah, Bayajida led a powerful cavalry to Africa. And after crossing the huge Sahara Desert, he then reached the town of Daura in northern Nigeria, tired and thirsty, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah, I certainly can imagine.
But as he got there, he found the local people in Daura terrified of something evil, a snake that was called Sarki, who apparently guarded the well and only allowed the villagers to drink once a week. So the gallant prince, Bayajida, kills the snake. Apparently, the local royals were shocked over this heroic act, and Bayajida is rewarded with the hand of the Queen of Daura.
Wow. Okay, so that was sort of a reward, I guess. But Laila, does this sound like it could be based on fact?
Oral history, Kai, but Daura is a real town on the Nigerian border with Niger. But
Aiki ya rage ma masanan tarihi da bincike.
I think to prove this, scientists and archaeologists should go and examine the well to determine the truth about how long it has been there, especially because the area that the well is located in has two streams, which nullifies the story that there was water scarcity in the area and that water had to be looked for.
Kenan babu matsalar ruwa a lokacin a ce babu ruwa ba inda za a samu ruwa.
That's Ado Mahaman, professor of history at the University of Taoua in Niger. And as you can hear, he has his doubts. But honestly, Kai, I'm not sure it matters because regardless of whether the story is real or made up, the Hausa tradition has to a large extent been built around it.
Okay, good point.
Critically, Bayajida's marriage to the Queen of Daura changed society. And society changed from a matriarchal one to a patriarchal one. Before this, all queens had been celibate.
Okay, so did the couple have children?
Well, according to legend, at first Bayajida and the Queen of Daura did not have children because the queen wanted to maintain her vow of celibacy, right? So she gave Bayajida a concubine called Bagwaria.
Okay, so this was a queen who was open to open relationships?
Apparently so. Though another version of the tale is that the Queen of Daura realized that an heir to the throne, who was not her child, might not be the best thing.
Oh God, the story gets more amazing.
It sure does. So legend has it that both women then became pregnant and bore sons. The queen's son fathered 6 sons. Together, this son and his grandchildren ruled what is known today as the 7 legitimate Hausa states, and that includes Daura, Kano, Katsina, Zaria, Gobir, Rano, and Hadija. So, to make things even more confusing, there were also 7 illegitimate states founded by the descendants of Bayajida and the concubine Bagwaria.
Right. So that's like super simple. I can totally follow that. That's complicated.
So essentially, we have 7 legitimate states and 7 illegitimate states. The legitimate states from the side of the queen and her son, and the illegitimate states from the side of Bagwaria. But with Bayajida being so central to the story of the Hausa states, it's mysterious, Kai, that there doesn't seem to be records of him among Arab travelers. Professor Ado Mahaman therefore suspects the Hausa tradition is based on a myth.
Masu sarakunan ƙasa Hausa.
The only thing we derive from this story is that the emirs of the Hausa states wanted to give themselves a special origin, something uncommon. In doing so, they could be able to say, I'm a descendant of Bayajida.
Some say the legend was coined between the 16th and the 19th centuries, while evidence of Hausa culture goes as far back as the 10th century, by the way. But be that as it may, Bayajida is vividly remembered today, and ceremonies of galloping horsemen play an important part in Hausa tradition today. In fact, Kai, it's said that before Bayajida's time, the Hausa rode bulls instead of horses.
Wow. But this if as you're telling it, the legend of Bayajida is quite something, that he's also he came from afar and founded these states. And, in this way, I think the creation of legends for society is always fascinating because not just of the story, but also of the values it presents, And while we often consider history to describe only facts, the truth is that legends and myths, at least when procured by the powerful, are vital in steering the course of events. And, so it may be difficult to separate one from the other, but I almost have the feeling that they're almost as important to each other as each other.
Hey, and now we have Professor Kai Neve speaking.
Oh, and by the way,
yes, I agree.
That's wonderful storytelling. You are a very good young griot.
Or a mini griot.
A mini griot. Laila the mini griot, yeah.
There we go. Laila the mini griot and Professor Kai. And, if there are elements of both Sunjata Keita and Bayajida's legends that we as outsiders may not understand or appreciate, but That shouldn't matter because those stories clearly mean a lot to those that tell it, and they've been telling those stories reliably for centuries.
That's where we will have to leave things for today. African Roots is a cooperation between Deutsche Welle and the Gerda Henkel Foundation. Thanks to Comic Republic for the artwork and illustrations. Special thanks to our producer Philip Zanna and our voiceover artists. Contributions by Tamara Wackernagel, Siddiqui Doumbia, Penado Abduwaba, and Abdullahi Maman Amadou. I'm Kai Nebe.
And I'm Laila Johnson Salami.